Kristen, welcome to Evansville Podcast. Finally, it worked out.
It did, Jason. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here in your studios.
Yeah.
And great to be on Southeast 1st Street here this afternoon.
Thanks for making the long drive over.
We're pretty fortunate here in downtown Evansville.
Oh, gosh. It's not like anywhere else around the area, but you guys started Evansville Living and...
Yes, sir.
About, 17 years ago?
It's been quite some time now. Now, Jason, March, April of 2000, realizing, of course, our readers, your podcast listeners can't, see our visuals, but I brought a first issue in here if you wanted to take a look at it. But it's been, then 17 years, and the 100th issue actually came out last fall. And because we're bi-monthly, it took us 16 years to get to 100 issues.
Wow, it doesn't seem like it's been that long.
It doesn't.
Sure, less for you than.
We joke that of course, thank heavens there's Photoshop to get rid of the wrinkles that the business has brought on. Some of the ladies joke that maybe they've gotten a few more gray hairs. We've raised our kids. We have, and several members of our staff have, raised our kids while producing this magazine, and it's, gratifying and cool to think that we and those on our staff can create something that we like and make a living creating something, which of course you know about that. You like to create.
Yeah, and it's odd. I mean, Evansville is a certain size, so it's not, you don't have the New York size or the LA size, but there's still, you're going on, 17 years later, you're still finding plenty to talk about, right?
Yes, Jason. In fact, one of the first things that we heard from people was, along the lines of what you're alluding to there. There is plenty, but, 17 years ago, if we had any, pushback or anyone who didn't think that we would be successful, it was the statement, well, what are you going to write about issue after issue here? And as you know, producing content about Evansville, there's so much. There's never a day that goes by that we don't get a story idea, that someone doesn't write, email, that we don't just pick up on a story idea by, prospecting for ideas. There's so much going on here. Plus, Evansville is a changing and evolving and growing city, so every day brings something new.
Oh yeah, and are you prospecting for ideas? So are you the ones looking for people? Do you contact them, or you have people contacting you, or how does that work?
Both, absolutely. Thankfully, folks here in Evansville like to share ideas, and they're not at all reticent to pick up the phone or call us and say, you need to, pay attention to my son or my niece or somebody they know.
Right.
And usually it's a good idea. Yes, sometimes folks just want a little bit of free promotion, but a lot of times there's a great idea behind that, and other people might be interested. So we get plenty of pitches, but then we also, we're combing social media. We're just paying attention. That's really what you just have to do. You have to be engaged in your community. I think everyone should be, but especially folks like you and me, we have to be engaged, and that's where we get our content, just by paying attention a lot of times. So
your role, like when you first started, were you editor right away?
I was. Yeah. I gave myself the title of editor and publisher, and I've hung on to it.
There you go. But has the duties of that, has that changed much over the years, or is that still pretty similar? It
has. The basic function is still the same. I myself see, every sentence that, shows up, ends up in the magazine. Really, everyone on our staff does. But back when we started, we really only had 2.5 employees.
Right.
So it was a lot different then. Now we have employees doing specific jobs, and we have a managing editor who can help me do my job, because then I wear some other, office management type of hats as well.
Oh, okay.
The basic editorial function is the same. Our magazine's structured pretty much the same that any bigger magazine might be, except, it's just on a smaller scale.
The technology's changed a lot since starting.
It has, yes.
It's ridiculous just to think back a couple years, let alone, 10 or 15 years. But how has that affected you guys?
Well, that's a great observation, Jason, and it just affects us by us, having to stay up to date. But the truth of the matter is, our very first issue was produced with film at our printer, and then right after that, we went. The term at the time that was used, and it still is a valid term, was computer to plate. Now you just hear digital.
Yeah.
But we went computer to plate with our second issue, and never backed off of that. But we like to reminisce and kind of look back on some things, the way we used to do things. But our creative director at the time when we started was a woman named Laura Mathis, who lives in Owensboro. She was with us 15 years, left for a few years, and has since come back in a slightly different role. But years ago, she and I would meet in Rio and hand off files. She was going back to Owensboro, and so there was still dial-up internet at that time too.
Yeah.
So things were a lot different. Things were slower in that regard. I mean, we literally would meet up at the gas station in Rio and exchange files. But the technology just enables us to do the job quicker and probably more accurately. But again, the function of putting together words and pictures to make a magazine is pretty low tech, actually, or at least the basic concept, and is an old concept.
Yeah. So how long does it take to put together, on average? I'm sure they're all different.
A couple weeks. A good couple weeks of solid production where we are pulling some late nights, just really all hands on deck.
Yeah.
But during that process, ads are coming in, and we are getting ad materials in, creating ads, and then our ad staff is getting those ads approved. The editorial staff is writing stories, proofing stories, working with freelancers who wrote stories. The art staff is gathering images, and all those are coming together. And then ultimately, the creative director, who is Heather Gray, she is our creative director now, she puts it all together in a book map, is what we call it, which is like a giant puzzle. Not giant puzzle, it's a 112-page puzzle or a 164-page puzzle, whatever.
That seems a big puzzle to me.
Yes, however many pages the magazine is. She puts that together, which involves, placing the ads, placing the stories, and getting it all together. And then we, literally start, making those pages and creating those pages.
Wow. Yeah, that's I've never known how those magazines go together. It's just something I take for granted. Just pick it up and I have no idea how this works.
Well, it's sort of like you obviously understand audio, and you know how to produce audio. Television producers know how to produce television. An editor is like a producer. We're just producing it on a page.
Sure.
I can't necessarily think in terms of television. I can think of great ideas that I might like to see on television,
right,
but I don't know how to put those together for video.
Yeah, exactly. So. No idea. Sort of alluding to the behind the scenes process, recently on one of your blogs, you showed, I guess, the timeline of how one of the covers with the mallet, the Abraham Lincoln mallet.
Oh, we did. Yes,
you
Jason,
showed
we did.
that. I was looking at that. I was like, that was cool to see the different iterations and where you started and everything. So
yes, there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of iterations, as you just said. Rarely does, especially a cover, come together on a first draft. We may have a concept we like. And we have just a great art team. Heather's great, and those who are on our team, just do a super job. But it really takes everyone to get everything right, because there are words on the cover too, and they've got to be punchy. They have to sell a magazine.
Yeah.
So it really takes the whole team. I mean, the cover, when it's all said and done, has garnered input from half a dozen people or more.
Yeah. So did you go to school for journalism then?
I did. I went to Western Kentucky University, and it was a public relations degree, actually, public relations in English. Okay. And I finished up with a master's here that's not related to journalism. But my first job was at a company we don't hear about here anymore, Keller Crescent Company.
Yeah.
It was a big ad agency, and unfortunately, it's not here anymore at all. It was packaging, printing, and advertising. And I was an intern there while I was in college, and then was fortunate enough to get a job there. And my title was just about the lowest title on the totem pole. I was a public relations junior writer, and my first job had me writing press releases and preparing media kits for some really glamorous companies, good local companies. So I'm not deriding that at all, but companies like Faultless Caster, that's no longer here anymore either. Some of the automotive companies in Southern Illinois, Champion. Mm-hmm. So I would write press releases on an oil filter, or write press releases on a caster, or even caskets, or even garage doors, things like that. And so you get pretty adept at, selling, making a product like that sound appealing to, some editor at a trade magazine who might want to write about your product. Okay. So that's what I did in my first job, and it was a pretty good training ground for ultimately doing this.
Yeah, because just doing this stuff, I have no training. It's pretty obvious, but
not at all.
No,
on the job training's the best.
Yeah, but it's like that's one of the hardest things is coming up with that, the catchy headline or the show notes. It's like I don't know.
And that takes a team effort too. Sometimes we have we don't have prizes. Maybe we should, but we have, we like to, get a few chuckles out of who came up with the best headline or the best, our cut lines have bold, what we call a bold-faced lead-in, something clever at the start of a cut line or caption.
Gotcha.
And we try to, make those really, really clever. So if we come up with a really neat one, we congratulate ourselves.
Yeah, like a Hall of Fame.
Yes, yeah.
Now, you started this with your husband.
Right, yes, Todd.
Yeah, Todd. And his title is the president?
He's the president. Yeah. We do have a number of magazines in our publishing group, and we all work on everything. But he sort of takes the lead more on the business magazine.
Gotcha.
And, for example, it's his picture in his editor's letter that you'll see, or his publisher's letter that you'll see in the business magazine. But, again, our staff produces both. Right. Todd heads up our sales staff by working with our sales team, which are two ladies who have been with us a long time. Mm-hmm. So he's more functioning in that role as the overall business and sales, while I look more at the editorial side of things.
Yeah. Is it tough to work with your husband?
We love to get that question, and he has an answer for it that's something like 95% of the time it's great, 4% of the time, there might be, he might give in, and 1% of the time he says something that I probably shouldn't say on the air. So
we have a bleep button.
Yeah, that's right. He makes sure that he keeps his manhood, so to speak, by not giving in 1% of the time.
All right. Fair enough.
So it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a pretty good percentage, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a lot worse with other.
It's fun. We have to be careful not to live the job. We come home and talk about it.
Yeah.
Our kids have grown up in it. I think it's different than maybe some other jobs where if you were just working, in a factory together or whatnot. But, this is something that we built. It's based on our city, which we love.
Yeah.
And so it's not so bad to talk about business at home, because generally it's a fun, creative conversation about something that we want to do.
Yeah, it kind of helps that you're talking about where you live, so you kind of have to almost, right?
Exactly, right. Yeah. It's really hard to separate it.
Yeah, and so that's, speaking from personal experience, this is my question for me, so everyone else can just tune out for a second. But when you first started, did you have a love or even a strong like for Evansville, or was this more of like, we live here, let's do a magazine?
Oh, absolutely. That's a good question. And two things played into that. We did love our city. We've just always had a lot of civic pride. I was born in Iowa, but moved here when I was 7. I went to Kay's grade school. Then we moved to Newburgh. My husband grew up in Newburgh. We both live in Evansville now. So we've had a lot of civic pride. We also were big magazine junkies, and just had a lot of print magazines coming into the house. And those two concepts are really sort of, what collided to make us think, gosh, Evansville doesn't have a city magazine. We could have this. Right. And sort of our catchphrase that we've remembered through the years was, why not Evansville? Why not Evansville? You might have thought the same thing. Why can't Evansville have a cool podcast like this? Why can't we have lots of these things that we have now downtown?
Right, yeah.
So we continually answer that question, I think, by looking to, have more here, more quality of life.
Yeah, and I think that's gaining a lot more traction lately, too. So.
I think so, too.
Yeah. Is there something that you wish we had, speaking of why not Evansville? Is there something like you wish Evansville had that it doesn't have right now?
Oh, gosh. We really do seem to have just about everything, we really, really want here. I mean, an ocean would be nice, but, here in flyover country in the past few weeks, I mean, we've felt a little guilty as we've enjoyed beautiful weather, while our coastal friends have had disastrous situations. So, I think we have a little bit of a Southern culture here, which I like. As far as things that we really don't have, nothing really comes to mind. I mean, it would be always nice to have maybe a few more ethnic restaurants, but we really have a great offering of those right now. Coming up here in our September-October issue, which is just now about to hit the street, we have a big feature on the restaurant that's so popular, La Campiana, and I can't
it's
trill my R's
say,
like that.
But
what a great story!
Gosh.
What a great restaurant!
That is a great restaurant. Yeah, I always hear rumors too of a potential downtown version as well. So
they did say that they are coming to the old Chick-fil-A location.
Which that would be probably good and bad for me.
You could achieve a balance, I think.
Yeah, I just have to walk more, I guess. There's a lot of that. Seems like every day there's something pops up, something new's popping up. So
yeah, it's really it's good here. I mean, when we talk to people about what they really like here, people are what always come up, really. And it is true. I mean, people here are nice, they're friendly, they're eager, we're happy to do business with each other, and all of those qualities play to our magazine because really, if we didn't have an audience that was engaged with what we were doing, we wouldn't be able to cover what's going on here. And we call up our subjects, ask if we can do a story on them, and they say, come on over. So the environment here makes it easy to tell the good stories.
Yeah. Is there like a story or a person that you haven't covered yet that you were hoping for, like this one keeps getting away from me, or something like that? Or
that's a great question. There are people that I wish that I would have covered perhaps before they passed away.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Some names aren't coming immediately to me. One I do remember from quite a few years ago, a gentleman who was always mentioned in historic Evansville circles. Ken McCutcheon was a great historian here, great name, great local person, and I never had a chance to interview him or meet him. And I thought, well, that'd be really cool. I wish I could have talked with him. But lots of people who might have passed. But generally, if we want to talk with someone, we'll make every point of trying to do that and share that with the readers.
Like I said, most people are pretty agreeable to that.
Absolutely,
at this point.
Yes.
They're like, oh yeah, man. Yeah, I'm pretty. One thing too, I'm jealous of you because you guys have on Twitter you have @Evansville.
That's perceptive of you, Jason.
Yeah.
We were an early adopter.
Very
Heather,
early.
Our creative director, had the wise forethought to snag that when we could.
Yeah.
And it's a great fit for us. I don't know if cities have their own handle. I don't know if the city has ever wanted to have @Evansville. We've never heard that anyone else, wanted to.
They're not aware of Twitter yet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's perhaps true. But we do have that, and that does help us out in our social media, and we try to respect that too, and try to be a good voice for the city there.
You probably get tagged for weird things.
We do from time to time. Yeah.
People are just like thinking that you're the city.
Yeah.
Like, that's not us.
Yeah.
I can't help you. Sorry.
Well, and talk about social media. I mean, Facebook was, it just wasn't a player at all when we started.
Oh, yeah.
We had some interns who introduced us to MySpace, and they were, they said, oh, well, it's sort of like a yearbook, but it's like a digital electronic yearbook, and we didn't know what that was. And we watched these interns work on their MySpace accounts, and then, here 17 years later, folks my age and everyone else are, on so many different platforms of social media.
Yeah, it's a lot. Do you guys have Instagram, you have Twitter and Facebook. Do you guys have Snapchat as well?
Our employees do, and we're thinking about getting establishing a company account. We have lots of pictures, and think we could probably do it pretty well.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Snapchat's a lot of work. I'm not necessarily a fan, especially since Facebook and Instagram stole all their ideas, but I don't know. I guess it's where my daughter said she doesn't go to Facebook because it's where all the old people are.
Right. Yes. So, no, I'm aware of that, Jason.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm on Facebook.
And me too.
I like that. I wrote down a couple questions. I want to make sure I asked you.
Sure.
What's the best part about running a magazine?
Oh, the best part about running a magazine, specifically a city magazine, because that is what we are, is again, the involvement in the city, and even if it weren't a city, I think the same. I would be attracted to the same parts of the business, which are, just the curiosity. It gives us license to explore anything we want, really. If I'm interested in something, hear about our city, chances are you might be interested, and a whole lot of other people. And so it sort of gives us license to, pursue some personal interests, that curiosity factor. For folks who are curious and always like to learn something, it's really the best. Every day is different, and there's not a single day that goes by, as I said earlier, that we're not, sharing something new with, if not our readers, certainly with our employees as we just, talk through the day. So that's the best thing, is just the getting to be in the community, the engagement, and just learning something and exploring something every day, and then creating it.
Yeah. So what's the biggest challenge then?
The biggest challenge is deadlines, no question.
Yeah.
They never get any easier after 17 years, and I think that might be in part because our level of perfectionism, or as we seek to, strive to be the best we can be, that has increased. The magazine generally are growing. They're thicker. We have more customers, more advertisers and clients putting other things in the magazines. So magazines are very technically difficult to produce when it's all said and done. And, it takes some time. And so deadlines are, always the nemesis there, working with clients who you want to serve well. But sometimes, they have the attitude that, yes, they want to be in your magazine, in Evansville Living or Evansville Business. They want that engagement with readers. But, marketing isn't always top of mind for everybody every day. They have other things on their plate, so they're not necessarily thinking about producing that ad for you.
Right.
So that's the struggle, deadlines, and just getting all the materials in.
Do you find that you like those kind of constraints, though, or is it really hate deadlines? I mean, it's like sometimes creative people need constraints, I guess.
I think on whole, I do enjoy deadlines. I mean, they're a challenge, and I think our staff does too. I mean, we all get in a certain groove. There's just a lot of energy. There's, a quick pace. We're doing everything, quickly but thoroughly. Just a lot of creative energy, and I think we all feed off of that. But then after it's over, you sort of feel a little bit depleted for, a day or two until you start in on that next cycle of creating the next magazine.
Yeah.
And then you can start to get excited about that one.
And sometimes you get candy and peephole takeout, right? So I saw
you're right. Yes, we do. We do try to, we meaning my husband and I, do try to keep everyone well fed during deadlines, because no one the creative director doesn't want to be hungry, the managing editor doesn't want to be hungry, nobody wants to be hungry on deadline.
Very true.
So yes, the peephole sees this pretty regularly, and Todd will go out and buy big fancy platters of candy, and we are not by design. It's just happened over the years. Largely female in our office. We have a guy photographer, a guy intern, and my husband. But a lot of girls, and girls like candy.
Hey, a lot of guys like candy too. That's true.
It is true. Everyone does.
One last topic, if you don't mind.
Sure.
If you have time.
Yes, absolutely, Jason.
You guys have an event calendar, pretty extensive event calendar.
We do.
Even though there's never anything to do in Evansville, right?
And so much. I mean, any given day,
do.
there's something fun going on.
It's a bit exhausting. But how do you find out what's going on? Are people sending this stuff to you? Are you researching that? Are you on the lookout all the time, or how does that work?
All of that, Jason. We do cross references with our past calendars to make sure we're not forgetting events. We send out emails and letters to not-for-profits, event organizers, and then we also, just peruse social media to find events that we might not know about, because we can put them in print and online. And it's a big part of what we do. People naturally, city magazine readers tend to look at a city magazine for events, and city magazines tend to have a longer shelf life simply because people like to keep information on their city. And so that's helpful, to have those events handy right there on your coffee table. We also produce an annual book and a social date book that comes out at the start of the year that is only events.
Yeah.
And a lot of times event planners just like to keep that handy. We get calls from organizations as they're planning a charity ball to see if some other organization might be planning something that day.
It's a good chance. Yes, they are.
Yes. But it's hard to stay on top of that, but we have a dedicated person who handles all of that, and she is very detail oriented, and we get it all in.
Yeah, there's so much. I'm just trying to, make sure I'm not missing anything, and it's like, it's just too much.
You can't do it all.
No,
and,
you can't. You really can't.
We always say there's always the next issue.
That's true.
If we miss something, there's always next year, we hope. See no reason why there wouldn't be after all this time, and there's always a next issue.
Well, do you have like a favorite event that maybe the ones you're not sponsoring?
Sure.
Because I'm sure those are the most favorites. But is there like a favorite event that you always look forward to then?
Well, one is held this time of year, of course. It's, the Kenny Camp Wine Festival.
Yeah.
Held this time of year in September. Our big events, Fall Festival. I mean, how can you not like the Fall Festival, really? You would, really be truly not an Evansville person if you said you didn't like the Fall Festival. Some of our holiday events are very nice. I can't participate in all of them every year, but we have, some really nice holiday events here in Evansville. As you said, there's always something going on.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate you coming over and talking to me today. And
Jason, thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Anytime you want to, where the studio is now. So.
Well, I know where it is here, on beautiful historic district here.
Yeah.
So thank you, and appreciate Evansville Podcast calling on us here.
Oh, yeah, anytime. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
Good job, everybody.